Okay, joining me now to get into all of this is Congressman Louie Gohmert, representing the 1st District of Texas. Congressman Gohmert, thanks for joining us.
Always good to be with you, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, beyond the Steele dossier, which is full of unsubstantiated claims that we know now was paid for by operatives of the Democratic Party, now we have a new revelation that came out this weekend that there may have been an FBI, some saying informant, some saying spy, inside the Trump campaign, and now President Trump is demanding an investigation. Do you think he's right to demand this investigation?
You bet he's right to demand an investigation. It is absolutely outrageous. And then to have the former CIA director, Brennan, come out and say, oh, it was a good thing if they were concerned about the Russians. It was a good thing to have spies in the camp, and then of Trump, obviously. But then that begs the question, well, if you were doing this to protect Trump, then why didn't you want to protect Hillary Clinton? Obviously, this man got so used to lying, to perjuring himself before Congress that, you know, it's just no big deal. He's not even committing a crime when he does an interview to lie like that. But this is a guy, obviously, as you know, you and I have talked about it off the air, but he voted for a communist before. This guy should never have been allowed to pass a background check for the things and the acquaintance he has, the things he had done. Clapper is in the same situation. And yet, here he comes. It is exactly consistent, though, with communist leaders, because in communist countries that he was willing to have the U.S. become a communist country, you see this. You have totalitarian governments, and of course, they put spies everywhere. But it is a different thing when you're dealing with the United States Constitution. You are supposed to have something called probable cause, that a crime probably, you have evidence to show a crime was probably committed and that this person probably participated in the crime. Then you get to have these invasive tactics and whatnot. But I've got friends I know that have done business internationally who have had either the FBI or the CIA approach them and say, we're concerned about this group that you may be doing business with, or you're talking about doing business with. We wondered if somebody within your company would help us in finding out some different answers to questions. That's what you do if you're concerned about the other party. But clearly, this is a case where they wanted an insurance policy just in case, on the crazy chance that Trump might be elected president, they would be able to take him out, an insurance policy, as we know our FBI friends referred to it. But that's not the way it's supposed to happen under our U.S. Constitution.
Well, you know, it's amazing. We have Cody Shearer. We have Sidney Blumenthal, who was barred from the State Department by Barack Obama, and a foreign agent named Christopher Steele. Somewhere along the way, they were going through Russia looking for dirt on Trump. I have a hard time believing they weren't paying for it. The question now would be, where was the money coming from? Then you have Ambassador Downer. You have this Australian ambassador who says, well, I had a conversation with Papadopoulos in a wine bar, and he told me about the hack of the DNC emails. We're supposed to believe that the FBI kicked off an entire counterintelligence investigation because of hearsay on a night of drinking. Now we've learned the name of this individual. Yes, sir.
Yeah, especially of a presidential campaign. And if they were really concerned, and these were people really concerned about justice, they would have to be concerned about the appearance of impropriety and what would be the best case that they could present in court to show it was fair and impartial. And that's when you would have a meeting and say, okay, who here is not a Democrat? Because it's going to look bad if we're voting for Hillary and we're Hillary supporters if we're the ones that's really going after Trump. So to make sure there's no appearance of impropriety, then let's find somebody that is not as completely biased as some of us obviously are. There was never any of that. They wanted, and Mueller has wanted the same thing. They wanted the most biased and unfair, prejudiced people they could, because they would go after Trump more with a passion than with probable cause.
Well, here's something amazing. Now we've learned the name of this alleged campaign informer spy, a man named Stephen Halper, who allegedly got to meet Carter Page at some economics roundtables and struck up a friendship with him. But then he's feeding him information saying, well, what do you know about the hack of the DNC and Hillary Clinton's emails and so forth? And it almost sounds like they had somebody who was trying to entrap Carter Page. So, on one side we have the dossier, on the other side we have this Australian ambassador and a whole bunch of barroom hearsay. Now the third thing that we find out is that maybe somebody was inside the campaign trying to get at Carter Page. And I guess the next question would be, was that person passing any information back channel to the Clinton campaign?
Well, it's a good question. An excellent question. As far as the Justice Department, and of course, campaigns have often had spies that they put in the other camp, and I'm sure there are people that hate my guts that are part of my email stream. They want to know everything that I'm doing, that kind of thing. But the difference is when it's the official United States government taking sides in a political fight. And that's what's just so phenomenal about this, and how these people in the Democratic Party can, with a straight face, say, no, this is fine, this is business as usual. It is not. This is the kind of violations that people should be going to prison for. I mean, people have gone to prison for a lot less than this. But when you're dealing with Mueller's FBI, then we find out the FBI framed Whitey Bulger's, his opponents, his adversaries, and put them in prison for life. We don't know if Mueller was so blind that he was not aware that the FBI that was working for him when he was the criminal attorney for the U.S. attorney in Boston, but we do know that he sent a letter demanding these guys stay in prison when it was obvious to most everybody else that they had been framed and they were put there for a crime they didn't commit.
All right, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What do you think at this point?
And Kirk Walden.
What do you think at this point Jeff Sessions ought to be doing? I mean, it seems like the Attorney General is just sitting on the sidelines.
Well, I have a good working relationship with our Attorney General. I think the world of him. And his recusal causes him to have to be careful that he doesn't get into an area of oversight and something that he has recused himself from. But this is a matter of the office of the Attorney General, of the office of the FBI, the whole department, the FBI, or the Bureau, if you prefer, and the Department of Justice. This demands attention from everybody, top to bottom, and he has got to go about cleaning house. But he has some of the old McMaster's ring that's still over there that is, talking about spies. He has spies in his own camp, which is why Tosh Gahar, the DOJ contact with the intelligence between him and the National Security Council. She sits on his notices so that he doesn't find out about the meeting until the day before or so. She's intentionally made him look bad. She's got to go. You got people like Jordan Kelly over at the White House who have been seen having dinner different times with the Mueller team. There are spies. This is what the people like Brennan and Clapper and more of a claptrap, but you've got Democrats that think that it is perfectly legitimate to spy, and the only way to correct that impression is to send some folks to prison for crimes that they have committed so that we can hopefully send a message for the next 30 or 40 years. kind of like Watergate, that you don't engage in these kind of things. But they have been emboldened. They got away with all kinds of things under Clinton. As Chuck Colson said, I went to prison for a year and a half for having one FBI file in the White House, and yet the Clinton White House had over 900 FBI files, every one of them a felony to have outside the FBI. And yet nobody did even a day of prison for over 900 individual crimes. So they got emboldened during the Clinton years, and then George W. Bush was trying to be gracious after a contested election, and so he came in and basically said, all right, anything you've done in the past is bygones. We're just going to start fresh from here. The trouble is, crimes, like I mentioned, had been committed and nobody was paid a price for it. So you had things like Lois Lerner and others that did learn from the way people got away with murder in the, speaking figuratively, of course. There are those who would say that Vince Foster would still be alive today if he actually had a gun, but those are the cynics. That's not necessarily me. But there have been crimes committed, like taking boxes out of Vince Foster's room or his office. But they saw what they got away with in the Clinton years, and they have doubled down, and somebody has got to pay for the crimes of the last administration. It seems to get worse, Andrew. Every other week we have another revelation, and this spy revelation should just have put it over the top. I do think Jeff Sessions does need to get involved at this point to see what has happened. We need to, at a minimum, have another Inspector General investigation into this type of spying tactics. How pervasive has it been? Has it been in anybody's camp other than a presidential Republican candidate? There's just a lot of things that have got to be found out. In the meantime, a grand jury needs to be calling Brennan and Clapper before them. Let's get this investigated. And of course, you know, there's even been threats that you don't mess with the intelligence community. We have ways of making you pay. Real threats to Trump to back off. So their threats continue. Somebody's got to go to jail.
I agree. I agree. And I think we need to have a second special counsel that gets to the bottom of the sourcing of the dossier. How did it make it to the FISA court and all that stuff? But we're out of time here. Congressman Gohmert, thanks so much for joining us in the program. We'll get you back real soon.
Love it. I've been saying for a year we need a second special counsel to investigate the special counsel. Still true.